Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
Lead organizer for We March Bahamas reacts to critics. That story straight ahead.
The DNA leader says the Black Friday March was not a good look for the PLP. That story is straight ahead.
The Cuban ambassador reacts to the passing of Fidel Castro. That story coming up.
Police need your help after 2 men are found dead in 2 separate incidents. And a glamorous way to give back is coming up. Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina McNeil. Topping news tonight, lead organizer of last Friday's We March Bahamas protest, Renard Henfield, is blasting critics who called the event that saw thousands of supporters occupy Rawson Square a political ploy. Henfield also explained why they declined an invitation to meet with Prime Minister Perry Christie on the matter, saying the time for talk is over. Jasmine Brown joins us in studio. Jasmine?
That's right, Christina. Henfield says the Prime Minister's offer comes too little too late and that their progress towards change is moving steadily.
The Prime Minister has had 2 terms of talking.
Christie's offer to discuss the issues came a day before Friday's massive protest, but Henfield insists he had no interest in meeting the nation's leader at the 9th hour.
When the Prime Minister opted to write to me the day before saying let's sit down and talk, it really, with the greatest respect, meant nothing to us.
As for accusations that the march was motivated by politics, Henfield had a strong message for critics like Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald and Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell. Fitzgerald, who participated in the march, said he was disappointed that the organizer did not take the Prime Minister up on his offer to meet. Mitchell, on the other hand, released a voice note hours before the protest, condemning the protest as a propaganda exercise, adding that no PLP supporter should be caught dead at the event.
I don't think anybody in this country is more anti-political parties than I am. I can't think of anyone that is. My whole vision is to walk away, or to convince the people of this country to walk away from those color gangs and to unite as one group of Bahamians that want to see a better Bahamas for all of us, regardless of whether it's the PLP or F&M in power. We've been divided for so long, and because we've been divided, politicians and parties have conquered us as a people.
As it relates to the massive turnout at Friday's 12-hour protest, Henfield says the response was more than organizers could have ever hoped for. Now that their voices have been heard, he says their next move is crafting solutions.
We got thousands of signatures at the event for persons who want to be a part of the think tank or focus groups. We got thousands more online. So we've moved on to drafting legislation that we want to see passed in Parliament. We've moved on to drafting those writs and petitions of the court that for the actions we want brought before the court.
Now, Henfield says the momentum will continue as organizers have a similar event planned for Majority Rule Day. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Jasmine. Well, Democratic National Alliance leader Brando McCartney says the Black Friday protest organized by We March Bahamas was for a good cause, but will not change anything as long as the Progressive Liberal Party is in power. Simone Davis has more in this report.
McCartney, who participated in Friday's march, asserted that although Bahamians clearly stated their dismay for the government, he believes nothing will change until the next general election.
Not this government. I think the march was a good thing. Let me just say that, and I certainly congratulate the organizers of it. One of the things I questioned about the march was what happens on Saturday. We had the march on Friday, what happens on Saturday? On Saturday, we still have the PLP government, which is understandable. With this government, nothing is going to change until election day.
Referring to Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell's last-ditch effort to discourage PLP supporters from participating, McCartney said his condemnation of the march was just plain ridiculous.
This is the man who many years ago tore up the Constitution. So I guess I imagine he has now believed that people should not exercise their constitutional right. But it was funny, you know, he made those comments, but yet we saw quite a number of PLP cabinet ministers out there. I guess they did not get the memo. Or if they did, they just completely ignored it and ignored the fact that that march out there was really against them. They are the government.
McCartney adds that the mere fact that PLP cabinet ministers attended the march only makes the government look bad.
They make them look dead bad. They should be ashamed of themselves, man. Make them look dead bad. What are they doing out there? What are they trying to prove? They don't realize what that march is all about. It's against them. Bad governance. Terrible governance. That's some of the worst governance I've ever seen. I'm almost 50 years old that I've ever seen in my life.
McCartney said in his opinion the Black Friday March was more of a memorial service for the government.
What the march showed them, it showed that it was a good memorial service for the PLP. May they rest in peace.
Reporting for our news, I'm Simone Davis.
Thanks, Simone. Well, Bahamas Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union President Nicole Martin says she was left confused after seeing members of the government and opposition participating in Friday's march. She says she wonders if they realized the march was about them.
While if I was a politician, I probably would not have been there, simply because when you look at what they were asking or demanding, it spoke directly to what was not done by persons sitting in office. And I took that to mean not just government or the majority in the House, I also took it to mean the minority, because government in the country is not just the governing party, only it is the official opposition.
But now that the march is over, Martin says it will be interesting to see what comes of it.
When all is said and done, no one, PLP, FNM, DNA, no one has an excuse, because they said by their appearance and by what they said, verbalized, they support what the Bahamian people are now asking for. The proof is always in the eating of the pudding.
Martin says she doesn't think the government gets it. She encourages Bahamians to continuously apply pressure until results are seen.
Have you ever tried to wake someone that was asleep? You don't just get them up by saying, hey, Nicole, wake up. You have to do some things to get me up. And sometimes I have children and grandchildren, sometimes keeping them awake is a lot of work. So you can't do one thing and expect that they have gotten it.
In other news, many in the Cuban community in the Bahamas are in mourning after the passing of Cuba's former president Fidel Castro. News of his death spread around the world this past weekend. Today, Kyle Joaquin spoke with the Cuban ambassador, who described Castro as a strong-willed man fixed on seeing the development of his country. Kyle?
Well, Christina, it's a somber mood here at the Cuban embassy. Just behind me, a makeshift memorial for the country's former president, Fidel Castro. Now, we spoke with the Cuban ambassador to the Bahamas today. She said despite some people's feelings toward Castro, one thing that no one can ever take away is that he was respected.
We will miss him always. We will never forget him.
Through the streets of Cuba, the people mourn. And in some parts of South Florida, there are mixed reactions, with some expressing sadness, but some celebrating. Here in the Bahamas, pictures of the communist leader line the walls of the Cuban embassy. A wreath and one of the more popular pictures of Castro in the mountains of Cuba hang above his book of remembrance.
Fidel was a visionary, and the father, not only the father of the Cuban nation, but also the father of so many people around the world.
Cuban ambassador to the Bahamas Ismara Vargas Walter sharing nothing but kind words about her former president. She said he was loved and respected by many around the world who looked up to him as a strong leader.
And that is what matters.
Right.
What matters for us is the fact that he is not any ordinary person, but somebody who is extremely important for Cuba, for the Caribbean region, for Latin America, and for the rest of the world.
Castro's legacy for some may prove controversial, with many Cubans leaving their home country. But the Cuban ambassador today remembered a different kind of leader. The embassy welcomes visitors to sign Castro's Book of Remembrance from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day until Sunday. Walter said upon hearing the news, the Cuban community in the Bahamas flocked to the embassy, where she said the mood was extremely somber.
They felt so sad. You could see that in their eyes. The way they came here, the way they expressed about Fidel, that embraced a lot of appreciation, a lot of respect and gratitude.
Now again, this book will be here open to the public for signing until Sunday. Reporting from the Cuban Embassy for Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Kyle. Well, still to come on Our News, a burned body discovered early this morning. Police now need your help. A Christian Council leader says the death penalty may not be the answer to crime in the country and a fashionable way to give back to a good cause. That's coming up when Our News returns.